This is Alex with the Daily Groomer.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Daily Groomer podcast. I'm your host, Alex, and today I have on one of my lovely friends, Shannon Taylor. Shannon runs a mobile pet grooming company out in the Coachella Valley. That's Palm Springs, California. And I brought her on today to just share about how business is going in the new year, learn a little bit about her story and how she got to where she's at today. Fun fact about Wonder Washers before we jump in. It is a woman-founded, family-run, and women-led business. When we first met Shannon, she told us the story about starting it with her mom and her sister. Today, they have 2 vans, and they are jam-packed at the beginning of this new year. So I wanted to bring her on and just talk to her. All right, Shannon, thanks so much for coming on. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so Shannon, yeah, I'm super glad you're here. Before we even get into how busy you are and like some of the processes you guys have in place to stay busy, I want to actually jump way back and not that far back, but just back to when you guys started the business. So when you and I first talked, you had told me that you had a different calling before this, and that was, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but in a furniture store, right?
Correct. Yeah, I was a general manager of a furniture store for 12 years. Well, I worked for the company for 12 years. I was general manager for most of it.
Okay. And was that a passion? Was that just time and place? What was that all about?
I started in 2010. I had been part of the big layoffs in 2008.
Okay.
And so I had been unemployed for a while trying to figure out what was next. And they fell into my lap, and it was really good for me at the time. I was very young for business, and I ended up being one of the youngest GMs ever promoted. So it was a good time.
That's legit. All right. Well, that explains so much to what I know about your guys' business today then, about how organized you are and everything like that. Okay. So we did that for 12 years. What led to, all right, let's go start a mobile dog grooming business?
So my mom and sister lived next door to the owner of a franchise mobile company out here.
Okay.
And over time, I would hear their reflections of the business owner and the way it was run and just different things like that, that it just like sparked something in my brain. So I started looking up like what it would cost, how do you start it? And it was probably like a year, no more than 2 in the making, and we ended up doing it. I wanted to get out of retail. I was tired of working every weekend and holiday, and which is funny because I work more now, but it was just a different team. So we found Wagon Tails. That's where our vans come from. And just started. I don't know. It was just kind of hearing what they were going through and what I felt like I could help coming from a different business, like not, and then the more and more I've learned, it's true. It's like groomers come in for the passion, everything else, but the business side of things gets a little bit of a struggle. So having both was really great. I've always loved dogs. I've always had a dog. They've always been in my life, surrounded. And so it was nice to bring 2 things together.
Yeah. And I think you're dead on. I think most folks that get into the business are coming the other direction, where they were groomers for a while and they might hear the same gripes about the local franchise or their own business even that they're working for. And they go, hey, I want to start my own shop. And they are trying to learn all of the business acumen. It seems like predominantly you came from the other side of the door where you had the business acumen. And not that you weren't, didn't have the dog friendly or the pet, right? But just predominantly had the business acumen, and then you're filling in the gaps outside of that. Talk to us through some of the challenges coming from that side, because like I say, we hear it from the other side all the time.
Well,
what were some of the
I had to
challenges?
learn how to groom, so that was
Yeah.
crazy. And being taught by two people that were essentially self-taught. They were just trained by other people in the industry as well. So that was probably my biggest thing, was having like an expectation of what I wanted to do, and then trying to learn how to do it all. And I mean, I look back, it's been 5 years now, and what I was doing then and how long it took me, not that, I know the whole argument of speed and quality, whatever, but it was just like, when you first start grooming, it's like, oh my God, I have no idea what I'm doing. So that was probably my hardest part. But then, some of my bigger mistakes was too, like, also I made my area of service too big. In the beginning, you're just trying to get anybody on the books, so you don't, like, I wasn't as good at setting up reoccurring. I wasn't as good at some of those other things, and that was definitely a struggle to change through the first couple of years.
Got it. That makes sense. It's kind of that catch-22 where it's like, all right, I'm so nervous. I'm doing this big business thing. I'll take anyone that will let me groom their dog, right? And you kind of bite yourself in the tail a little bit there by letting your service area get too big. How early into that, I guess, like looking back, what would you have done differently? Would you have done it just right out of the gate, and you would have started saying more no to more people, or when you get a certain size?
I honestly don't think it's hard to say that I would do it any differently. I often hear people ask this, or like when they're starting, like what to do, and everybody gives suggestions, but it's so hard when you're starting. I was lucky enough, I was still working at the furniture store. So I was working 7 days, I was working 5 days a week and running the business while at the same time, as well as grooming 1 day a week, trying to learn. So I was lucky enough to have other income coming in. I couldn't imagine just starting a business and being able to say no to anybody. If that's what if you haven't properly saved, or even if you did, even if you set everything up, you're 6 months in and you don't have a full roster, that's terrifying. So in the beginning, my biggest suggestion to people is keep your vocabulary open. Like, this is what we're doing right now at this moment, those kind of like open-ended things, because you do kind of have to do whatever you have to start. Like, you have a business, it costs money, you need money, like, that's just the deal. So coming out the gate and just being like, no, I'm not going to do this and this and that all feels impossible.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Like, yeah, if you could come out that strong, maybe you should be doing something else. Maybe you should be, running a rocket ship company or something like that.
Yeah. And then it's one thing if you're moving from like a store to mobile, sure, you have all the things you already know. But if you're just starting, it's scary.
So, and then again, we won't talk about this forever, but I do love the angle that you came in at it from, like, a GM perspective, where you are thinking more about the business rather than about, maybe your specific grooming technique you're going to use, right? Talk to me more when you set up the business. Obviously, you kept your job and you learned how to groom. You got the van. You probably had that van on lease. What was the setup and the thinking process like of, okay, this is my goal, my internal roadmap for me to be able to quit my job and move over? Was that, hey, a full book? Was that, hey, once I feel like I can hire another person? Or, what was your thinking there to make that full transition as smartly as possible?
Yeah, well, I started the business. I got a lot of the good stuff out of the way while I was working. So I did start as an LLC right off the gate, because I owned a home already, and I knew the protections of, keeping the business separate. And so it had its own bank account. It had its own, I started its socials, right? Well, not the socials, but like it had email, a website. I hired a brand person, so I came out of the gate with a lot of that stuff that was easy. So when I started booking my website and what we did, it looked like an established business. So that helped a lot. And for me to switch to actually leaving where I was to grooming, I felt like I needed to be able to groom by myself, So I don't know, for 6 months, I was probably with somebody at all times. But honestly, the place I knew it was cutting, the place that I was working at was closing that building. So I also had like a timeline. Like it was like it's got to go by this time. And luckily, it was about a year that I had that I could figure out grooming and wonder washers before I left where I was.
That makes sense. Okay, so let's fast forward just a tad bit here. Right now, your books are slamming jamming. We were just talking before we hit the record button here about how busy you are versus it seems like how a lot of people are feeling nowadays. And I'm sure it didn't start like that, or maybe it did. But give us some context into what the demand of the area is like. What's Springs like? Is it super crowded from a mobile grooming perspective? Is there nobody out there? What were you kind of jumping into just to lay the groundwork before we start talking about strategies?
Yeah, so we are a resort town, so we have snowbirds. So in the winter we get busier. I don't know the numbers exactly. It's changed over the years, but we get a big influx, 30 to 40% higher, during the winter. When I started the business, there was less. There was definitely a need for the market. Our franchise out here is Aussie. It's an Aussie franchise. They were the biggest one, and they have fluctuated somewhere between 7 and 12 vans, depending on who they have. And so that was your biggest competition. And then there was just a couple other, like, one van mom and pop mobile shops kind of deals.
Okay, got it. So I was just trying to do a quick search for you to see what the demand was like out there. But it seems like it's a standard market, for lack of a better word. It's not super, it's not like there's vans going all over the place, but it's also not like you guys were the first ones out there.
Correct. Yeah, no, there was quite a few established. And the biggest part for us is that there are like August, like there's probably 2 months where it's real bad because even people who live down here full time will vacation, get out of town, their kids are, whatever it is. So that would be like the biggest part of us is that we have a big jump for a few months in the winter and quite a drop in the summer. But other than yeah, I wasn't the first and I definitely wasn't the last.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so now we're at 2 vans as well. So I would imagine we have full capacity on 2 vans. Walk me through just baseline Shannon Business 101 strategies for how are we keeping these vans at max capacity? This could be as like advanced, Shannon, as like, hey, Alex, I've tried XYZ. We're doing all these crazy things. Or even as light as like, hey, step 1, have a website. Step 2, have a Google profile, right? Just let's start filtering some of these areas here. What's important to you to keep these vans booked?
I'll separate it in 2 different ways. The first one is when we first started, everybody hates this, but Yelp is a huge thing. Like like the amount of people that have heard from me because of Yelp is insane. Now, you get a lot of calls, but I promise you don't get a lot of turnout. Like the amount of people that reach us either via the Yelp app or call us from Yelp, doesn't convert a lot because those people are looking for a certain price point and they're shopping and that's their kind of deal. But the word of mouth and just getting out there and using their ads was huge in the beginning. I mean, that it's like what got me started. I learned a lot from all of that. But yes, I think that for us, in the very beginning, it was huge that I had a professional website. In the beginning, I answered every phone call that came through and things like that. But now my biggest the biggest thing that helps us is that I get as many people as possible on a reoccurring. So they are in the system already. I'm not booking at the end of every appointment, which saves us time while we're interacting with the clients. But like I have clients that are every other week, every 4 weeks, every 6 weeks, every 8 weeks. And, and they get a reminder after every appointment when we close the appointment. And so having a software system for your scheduling that works, and getting people on reoccurring. Not, oh, okay, I'll call you later. Because what happens is everybody calls you and you've already booked, and reoccurring is the biggest thing for us, because I can look 6 months in advance and there's already like a week that's completely full, and I can move things around if I need to, but I know where to put those clients that maybe are here seasonally that only do two or three appointments, or the ones that, we all have some people that get their dogs groomed every 3 months, or, something like that. But my reoccurring take priority, so that they're not feeling neglected. The client that's been around for 5 years that gets their dog groomed every 4 weeks consistently, they're never being missed or forgotten, because it's already in the system, and they already know it's reminded. So there's less, they'll plan around you if you give them a date that early.
All right, real quick, 5-second pause. You just heard us talk about systems, and here's the truth, guys. Repeat clients are the entire game in growing your grooming business. Teddy is built to help just with that. With recurring booking, you can set the rhythm. I'm talking every 4, 6, 8 weeks, whatever. Teddy helps keep those appointments coming back automatically. That means fewer slow weeks, fewer last-minute scrambling texts, and way less mental load trying to remember who's supposed to come back when. You just spend less time playing calendar Tetris and more time just grooming dogs when you are using Teddy. And remember, Teddy is built by the Daily Groomer team. So just by listening to this episode, you get to try it out for free. Go ahead to tryteddy.com and check it out. All right, back to the show. I love that. You touched on two things that I think deserve equal levels of importance. It is not only having, just broad level awareness out there, right? Like Yelp, you're saying, hey, even though we don't get a ton of customers directly from Yelp, having us show up highly on there and getting almost that like word of mouth brand exercise out there is incredibly important. And that plays in the part of like the professional website. You guys are listed on the Daily Groomer. You guys are on the Google My Business profile, right? Like just getting your surface area of luck kind of out there. That's A at the top. But then at the bottom, having a system set up so that all of that hard work, and even if we call it a little bit of luck, to get that person to you guys, you keep them, right? And you have to have a system set up to keep them, so you're not running on this hamster wheel where you have to keep getting more. And I love too, Shannon, you don't know how many people have told me they cannot set up these systems to be successful because they're in a vacation environment. Alex, you don't get it. We cannot set up recurring appointments with our clients because we have a lot of snowbirds, or we have a lot of, forget what they call the opposite of that, right? But I love that you are here to prove the opposite. That, hey, actually you can, and you might even be able to see them more frequently because they're only here for so long.
Well, here's the deal, though. All these people, they know. They live in two different areas. They're used to having to find their hairstylist, their groomer, their whatever. They have to shift their entire life for 3 months or 6 months or whatever, however they're gone. I have some of my snowbirds. They're normally out somewhere between October and November. They're reaching out to me in August. Like, you know what I mean? Or September. They're giving me a month or more to be like, hey, we're going to be here November 11th through whatever. And, and I set them up on a reoccurring and then cancel the reoccurring when they leave. Or if it's a client that needs more specific dates, we set 5, 6 appointments in advance. Because what I learned is if I don't, then I'm scrambling. I get very anxious. I feel bad that I forgot. I can't get them in. I'm either working 12-hour days or, trying to pull stuff off that doesn't work, or going to, it makes everybody's life crazy. And so they'll book it. They know, these people that are not living here year round know that they have to set these things up. And if they don't, or I can't tell you how many times I've told somebody like, hey, if we don't set something up and reoccurring, or if we don't schedule a few, or if you don't let us know that, hey, I don't have my next appointment, you're going to have to wait 6, 8, 10 weeks. And so if that's not what you want, and it happens one time, they'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll let you know. And then they let me know, or they reach out and I'm like, great, Morgan's next availability is, 8 weeks from now. Oh my God, I can't do that. I said, well, I told you, I can let you know if somebody cancels, but it's probably not going to happen.
Got it. Okay, so that was my next question is, when does that conversation happen? And you're saying, hey, the first time a new customer, let's just say, for example, calls you, right? The first time you talk to that new customer, it is as easy as just, hey, is this something, do you want to get a few of these on the schedule? Otherwise, we're not going to be able to book until 8 to 10 weeks from the next time you call.
Yeah, I think the first time is hard because it's about what we say when we book it. I wouldn't say that right off the gate I'm booking reoccurring unless they're a client that knows it. They're like, hey, I just moved here. My other groomer's done, whatever. I want this. They're used to a schedule. That comes easy. But sometimes people do want to have the first appointment. They want to see what the groom's like, the experience is like before they're going to do any of that. But in the beginning conversation, and also that first appointment for us, luckily, they've already waited 4 to 6 weeks for their first appointment. So they're ready they're like, okay, if I like this, I'm going to book. Like, I need to do it now. And so but letting them know. So in my intake form, one of the questions is, how often do you get them groomed, or when was their last groom? Something so that I know what kind of person it is before I'm just like, oh, this person has a husky that gets their dog groomed every season, shedding season. It's like 2 to 3 times a year or whatever. They're not going to want to get on a reoccurring, and they're okay to wait. They're going to, if they call and there's not an appointment for a month or 6 weeks, they're like, okay, fine. That works.
Gosh, I cannot believe 6 to 8 weeks. That's amazing. You guys have 2 vans. I would imagine the wait list or the wait is the same for both. How often are you guys running them? Like, how many appointments are you guys seeing a week?
One van runs 5 days a week. The other van right now is running 7 with 2 people in it. I work 3 days by myself. We work 1 day together, which is probably the funniest part about being mobile with 2 people in the van. But we do a lot of big dogs or double dogs or multiple dog families or something like that. So I'll work 3 days. We work 1 day together, and then she'll work 3 days, and then the other girl works 5 days. And we're trying in season. We're doing somewhere between 6 and 10 dogs a day.
That's insane. So, like, at the high end, you're doing something like 120 dogs a week.
Well, that's 2 vans, so there's technically 14 days in my week. So,
yeah.
Oh,
right.
So,
right. Holy cow.
Yeah.
That's insane. Oh my gosh. Okay, so with that, then talk to me, Shannon. Let's step back for a sec. What's the team look like right now to be able to do that kind of volume?
I have myself and 2 groomers currently. They're no longer my family because it went to a different direction. Some people moved around, but it's funny though, because one of my groomers is almost like a sister, because she and my sister were pregnant at the same time 5 years ago, and they worked together at the same time. So they came from the same previous company, and so it was quite entertaining. She was actually interested in opening her own business, and had reached out to me like, hey, I already had this business. Like, hey, it was funny because she was so bold. She's like, it's totally okay if you say no, but would you be willing to help me open my own business? And she has her own clientele. When she came, just as a fast forward, when she came from the other company to me, she brought almost an entire roster of people. Like, I literally didn't even have to, everybody followed her. She was at this previous place for 8 years and practically built up that place. And her people were like crazy about her. Like, even today, we barely get to groom any of her dogs if she's on vacation. They'll wait, they'll move, they'll go.
Oh my gosh.
It's crazy. Yeah, her people love her, and I get it. She's amazing. The dog, her energy is perfect. She's and she doesn't do perfect grooms. She's just clean, quick, good. People love her. The dogs love her, and that's really all that matters. We're not doing really, really amazing grooms in this mobile setting. It's just not. There are some that we can pull out every once in a while, but most of the time this is a lot more not comfort grooms like senior dogs, but just get them comfortable, get them go.
Yeah, it's a good middle ground, right? Like, everyone's got their thing, and I do feel like at a lot of these areas, if I was to give some broad level, takeaways, it seems like that's the best bang for your buck, not only on the customer side, but on the business side as well, right? You're not spending 3 hours per groom to get a show level groom ready, right?
Yeah.
But you're also not, a factory, like some of the corporates where you're in, out, in, out, in, out, in, out, right? Somewhere soft spot in between.
Well, and just as a tip for business owners, like when I had one of the biggest complaints from anybody in this industry I've ever heard is they're scheduled too much, they're pressured. If somebody, there's no understanding, like they want every groomer to be the same. And that's just not how it is. Like that, I have one girl that can do a good groom in 45 minutes and another one at 75 minutes. And that's how I schedule it, and each dog is a little bit different. You can't just put these arbitrary things on people or dogs or situations. And so when you're booking these time slots, it's not like I book, 11, 12, 1, 2. No, you're booking some 11, 15s and, just whatever works for them. So, yeah. But I have her doing that. She practically runs one of her vans. And then the other van is me and Morgan, and also from the same company.
Oh my gosh. God bless.
Yeah, I know. When you get into corporate and or franchises, they have their own set of rules that come from somebody. And, if that's not a right fit for you, their turnover is kind of big, but that's part of corporate.
Talk to me a little bit about, we don't need to bash any corporate or franchises, but I do want to look at the pros towards like, okay, they came to you for a reason and they've stayed with you for a reason. We don't need to talk much about, it's very apparent why they might have come to you, right? You guys have a great presence online. You have a great story. You're awesome. The grooms you guys do are awesome. Like the community loves you. It's pretty apparent that there's many factors for why they might have come to you, but the stay with you, that's a look behind the curtain. And that's something that I'm always curious when I talk to enduring businesses in our industry. That's one of the biggest tells, is that they are doing something differently behind the curtain that keeps their staff happy and motivated and incentivized and everything. Peel back that curtain for us a little bit.
So coming from a retail job, one of the reasons I left that was because there were so many times in my 10-year, 12-year career that I missed baby showers or weddings or family events or, a pool party, like just anything, because I was working weekends. I mean, it's just, weekends, holidays. I worked minimum 10 hours. Sometimes it was 12, 14-hour days. I was so tired of being treated just like a number. Even though I worked for a family company, my supervisor and I were really close. You can get you can only go so far in a corporate world or a retail world. So I left that. And so because I wanted to be able to, sure, I work a lot more. I'm up earlier. Sometimes my days are still longer, but I get to choose when I work them. If I have a wedding or a vacation or, a half day I want to do, I can do that. I can manipulate the schedule and I don't have to ask anybody else. It's me who asks. So I give that to my employees. If they're sick, if their kids are sick, if they need a day off, if their schedule doesn't work, I'm going to flip the switch where I'm going to be employee forward before I'm customer forward, in a sense, to what works with them and their family. Both my girls have young kids, and I want them to not want to have to take a day. Like, I want them to be upset about, oh my God, I'm so sorry I have to take this day off, because they want to work, not because they feel like they're going to get fired or they feel like they're whatever. I don't keep track of how many days off they have. They don't get a 1 week or 2 week vacation. It's like you get to make your own money. You tell me what it is, as long as you communicate with your clients and you're willing to move this around. If you're going to take a week off, maybe you work an extra day before and after. We come and sit somewhere in the middle, because that's what I always wanted, is to just honestly be treated like a human being and not a machine.
It's funny that like sometimes that's like as simple as it has to be. And I know that there are a bunch of like edge things that you probably do that you're either too humble to admit or forget about on how you take care of those girls and stuff like that. But it is funny that at the end of the day, how a lot of this stuff does boil down is like, do I feel valued? Do I feel heard? right? Do I have the opportunity to provide for my family at work?
Mm-hmm.
On that note, I am always curious, do you have any hot takes or opinions or even just general structures for groomer pay?
Yeah. Um, I am part of the group. 50% will never make a business owner money. You cannot pay somebody half of your revenue. It's just impossible from a business point of view to do that. What you do is I give a decent commission. If you take on more responsibility, you get more. But I also pay them to go to grooming conventions. And when like for example, we're going to Pasadena this weekend. I put up the hotel. I buy food all weekend. I pay them hourly for when they're sitting in the classes. And I normally buy them something or give them give them some money to go buy something at the trade show. That alone, that experience, you get to bond with them. They're excited. They get away from, it's like kind of like a work vacation. That experience is better than whatever 2% more per week or something along those lines. And then, we try to get together on a regular basis outside of work things as well. But you have to pay them properly. And it's hard because, yes, I say commission, but in California, there's all sorts of rules and you're not supposed to do commission on service and this and that. But as long as you're calculating the hourly correctly and their commission is more than that, which I learned coming from where I came from. But it's just, sorry, I'm stuttering. Checking in with them, making sure that they're happy, if they need anything more. And I always say, like, if you guys feel like, I'll say like, hey, is it too many dogs? Is it not enough dogs? Do you feel like the pay is okay? Do you feel like this dog is enough? Because if I haven't groomed the dog before and they're doing it and it's a new dog, and I quote a price and it's too much or too little or something like that, I give them the autonomy to say like, no, it's going to be this much. And they don't have to deal with any of the backlash. If the client doesn't like it, I'll deal with it.
That makes sense. I mean, there is a whole veil of stuff that you're going to deal with. I mean, hence we've already covered, like you're working, you're up early, you're down late, right? Like you're doing all that sort of stuff. You've got a longer to-do list than anyone else, but that's also because it's your baby, right?
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, there is one item on that to-do list that I know you probably just hit, and I'm going to ask you about. It is the price increases. We are recording this in February of the new year. I'm not sure if you do your price increases at the beginning of the year or every other year or how you do that, but wanted to open up the conversation. Fill us in on maybe what you do and why you do it like that.
So I don't do it consistently. I actually, probably one of the answers to a previous question, I didn't do it well enough in the beginning, and I didn't structure well enough. So recently, this last year, and rather than doing it January for me, I do it before the snowbirds come in. So we'll do it in like October or like right after this, because it's also like, I'm not going to do it during summer because our year-round people are all struggling summer. So we normally do it like October if we're going to do it. And I do it more like I needed to revamp. So we did a big revamp, and we did a minimum for the haircut. We did a minimum. We like kind of reorganized and let everybody know with a broadcast text through our system. But my snowbirds, if there's a price increase, they just ask their new price when they come back. It's kind of nice for some of the seasonal ones, or if last season I just felt like that wasn't enough or whatever, I'll bump it up. And it's just like, hey, this is the price this time. So there's not a lot of language with them because they know that things are shifting and stuff like that. But I don't have a really good structure or consistency with my price changes. What I will say is that there are enough people out there looking for something else that if you do, you inevitably will lose people when you raise the price. But there will be somebody else that will pay that price. Maybe it's eventually with some people. I am very lucky, very grateful, blessed, whatever. I have calls all the time that I could have gotten that if I had something sooner. So if I have a client that isn't fitting well, that isn't the struggle for the pay isn't enough or anything like that, it's very hard to do. Let me tell you, it is very hard to do and just say, no, I'm not going to, it's the hardest thing I've ever had to do. But I try to remind myself, there's other people. There's literally somebody calling right now while I'm talking to the client that would probably take that slot and pay the money. And it's so hard to do it. You just have to do it.
Well, and on top of that too, I mean, you're doing it not because you're greedy, but your prices have gone up as well. I always find that funny is like, as an industry, we do preach price increases on a yearly basis, but I don't think oftentimes we preach enough why. Why do we do price increases on a yearly basis? And that's because the cost of doing business has increased on a yearly basis, right? And we need to make sure that we are still charging at least at par, if not a little bit more, to match those every year, right? And we don't talk enough about why. And I think if we are able to understand that ourselves, we can communicate that a lot better and feel more comfortable about communicating that once we do these price increases. Hey, we have to raise 3, 5, 6, 7, 8% because our cost of doing business has gone up this year due to XYZ. I need to make sure I'm paying my staff fairly. I need to make sure that we are able to keep servicing your dog, etc. Right? And at that point too, it's taking the blame away from you, Shannon, as the business owner. And hey, I don't view you as a greedy, service provider. I see you as, oh, I want to keep using Shannon's service. I love her groomers, right? I need to make sure that she can afford to keep that business going.
Yeah, and I think that we are shifting to the clientele that doesn't get annual increases or understand why the company shouldn't take the cost of gas, all those things. Without being morbid, they're eventually not going to be our clients, and everybody, it's just that's where you struggle. You struggle with our boomers and our older clientele because that was nothing they ever understood. It was always the client came first, and all of that rhetoric that has just changed. And I'm not saying that you should be awful to clients or, oh, I don't care about you, or there are some clients that I definitely undercharge because they don't have the capacity, this or that, but I do them, and I'm okay with that, or my groomers will do it. It's like, at the end of the day, it is up to you, but you do have to run a business. And everybody else, like people get the gas goes up, supplies go up. If everything else, the struggle though is that all of their stuff is also going up. So when somebody who is trying to treat their dog well and has budgeted exactly that dollar amount, and you even raise $2 or $3, when they calculate that over their, it's a lot. Their groceries just went up $5, their gas went up. So I think that it's also important, just as much as why they're struggling, they have to know why you're struggling, and you find some happy medium, which I don't know if there's a happy medium, more of a reasonable medium.
Totally. Okay. Well, on that note, Shannon, I want to thank you for coming on today and sharing about your business. I know you guys are super freaking busy right now. So kudos to you guys, what you guys have built. It's crazy to think that you've gotten to this point in only 5 years. Remarkable. I can't wait to see where it goes from here. I know. But tell us, everyone listening, if we want to learn more about Wonder Washers or you or your team or anything like that, shout out a website, social media, something that we can go peek around at.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same through platforms. It's wonderwashers.grooming for Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. And then our website is wonderwashersgrooming.com. It's pretty easy.
Awesome. I love that.
Pretty seamless.
There you go. And for anyone out in Palm Springs, I'm sure Shannon would love to have you check her out. Shannon, thank you so much for coming on. This was amazing. Like I said, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this during your guys' snowbird busy season.
Thank you. Nope. Thank you for having me. It was great talking.
Okay. And that's the pod, everyone.